Boom! I had an epiphany for the greatest mobile game ever. I had to make it. Unfortunately, I have no idea what I'm doing, and most of the coding I know was learned in 3 weeks, 5 years ago on freecodecamp.org. Plus, I'm the guy who still mixes up there and there. So I don't know if I'm the right one for the task. But then, I thought of a much simpler game that still sounds cool. Gravity Runner. Maybe I can make that. So I got to work. Games are usually made in game engines, and I decided to try using an open source one called Godot. My biggest concern was that there wasn't going to be enough beginner resources for Godot, and I'd get hopelessly stuck. I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. I started out by following a simple guide on how to make an endless runner game, and I found some free video game art online. I set up a scrolling space background, and then a floor, and then another floor on the ceiling, which I guess is just called a ceiling. And then I added my little astronaut dude and tried to animate his running.
He's hobbling along.
Then I tried to add jumping, and my game completely stopped working. After a long time, I figured out that the hotkey I use for screen recording is the same hotkey used for setting up something called a breakpoint, which seems to have no purpose but to trick beginners. I'm serious, you set a breakpoint and the game breaks at that point. Why? I eventually made it so that the space guy could only jump when he was touching the ground. Then I added an item that randomly spawns on a timer, either an orb or a pillar. At this point, the game still kind of sucks. Everything's evenly spaced out, it's just boring. I made orbs collectible, and I added a score counter at the top. And then I made it so that you die when you hit a pillar. I added a few sound effects, a classic jumping sound. I used the sound of a spinning plastic tube for my orb collection noise, and an epic death sound. And this is where the tutorial ended. I was on my own. But only for a second, because I found another tutorial that showed me how to change gravity. At first his body wasn't flipping, and he could change gravity indefinitely while in the air. And also I'm not sure what happened here. And finally I fixed it all. I wanted to add the ability for him to change gravity in the air, but only once and only after jumping, and I didn't want him to be able to double jump either. And this was a huge improvement. I wanted to be able to spawn chunks of obstacles instead of individual items so that I could pre-build them in fun ways. And I wanted everything to speed up with each coin collected. It sounds simple, but just to get this in place took me 8.5 hours.
My face hurts. My eyes hurt.
I guess I'm no game developer. I'm a YouTube hobbyist. I wanted the controls to be forgiving, so I added something called a jump buffer, which means if you jump right before the spaceman touches the ground, he'll still end up jumping immediately when he touches. Now, the blocks were still being generated on a timer, so as things sped up, the blocks spaced out more and more, which I did not like. And then I made it so that the spawner was based off of location instead of time. Here's what everything looks like when I zoom out. Right when a chunk of obstacles exits this blue rectangle, a new chunk is spawned, and it was smooth sailing from here. No, actually it was very choppy sailing from here, because every time a new chunk loads, there's a lag spike, which happens like every second. And after a few days of trying to figure out something called object pooling, and failing to, I managed to make up my own solution. I decided to have every chunk of obstacles loaded at the beginning of the game, and for a random one on the left of the screen to be selected and moved back to the beginning. This worked perfectly. And fixing the lag only took like 10 hours. But one unforeseen consequence of this solution is that there's a limited amount of orbs in the game. Once an orb is removed, it's gone. So that means there's a maximum amount of points possible. But I actually kind of like the idea of the game being beatable. If you're good enough, you can completely beat the game. I made a few more obstacle chunks and tested them to make sure they're still possible at the fastest speed. Then I added a few finishing touches. A main menu, killer background music made by my friend RJ. RJ, you're the man. I even made the synthesizer volume increase as you get more points, so the game feels kind of increasingly intense. I'm not sure what happened here, and I made a pause menu. And finally, I tried to get the game working on my cell phone. You know things are getting real when you have to pull out the Windows command prompt.
Here it is. What?
I mean, I'm not sure why it's not filling the whole screen. Okay, let's play.
What?
I really wanted people to be able to compete for high scores, so the last big hurdle I had was setting up Google Play leaderboards.
No way.
And for some more finishing touches, part 2, I added a tutorial screen and a special orb that slows you down if you collect it. And finally, after 3 weeks and 67 hours of work, I submitted it to the Google Play Store, and here's what it looks like. 48 is my high score. It was honestly really good. I don't think very many people are going to be able to beat that. I asked a bunch of my friends to play my game, and look at this. The leaderboards are empty. You guys didn't even try my game. And thank you for watching my challenges. Let me know what challenge I should do next.